Welcome to Music Ranch, Montana. There we go. Quite a view out there, huh? Well, I'm Gabe McCauley, host of Reconnecting Roots, a TV series on PBS about American history and culture, where we explore the... Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Mom. Explore the values of yesterday and the promise of tomorrow. Created and inspired by none other than Frank Smith of Music Ranch, Montana. But that's not why any of you are here tonight. You are here to witness two great individuals that I've had the pleasure and honor of working with, but more importantly, are good friends of mine. So a little later this evening, you'll hear from Rory Feek, and I'm sure he'll entertain you with plenty of songs and some few stories, I'm sure. But right now, we're going to bring out a farmer. And for those of you here in Montana, I know you have a great respect for the land and for preserving what we see out here, for healing the earth, and for farmers, for ranchers. And so tonight, we bring you who Time Magazine calls the world's most innovative farmer. He's been featured in documentaries like Food Inc., and best-selling books like The Omnivore's Dilemma. But you probably know him as the self-proclaimed Christian, libertarian, environmentalist, capitalist, lunatic farmer. Please welcome Mr. Joel Salatin.
Hi, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks for coming out. I know you could have been anywhere, but you chose to be here, and I honor and appreciate that a lot. So we've talked a lot about what I should bring tonight. If you were here last year when Rory and I were here, we kind of did an informal interview, kind of just Q&A style to entertain. And so this year, Rory's he's the boss of the outfit. He said, I just want you to present yourself and do a 20, 25 minute, maybe 30 minute presentation just from your heart and where you see things. And so that's what I'm going to do. So you're just going to have to, this is as close to a sermon as I do. But I've kind of called this Where We Are, How We Got Here, and How Do We Fix It. And, recently, I've had more and more people come up to me and say, I just want to disentangle from the system. I want to disentangle from social media. I want to disentangle from the utility company. I want to disentangle from the IRS, from the bureaucracy, from politics. You know what I'm talking about? It's just like we've got this kind of heavy cloud that's just coming to us. A recent futurist professor at MIT recently did an interview, and he said that liberal, conservative, greenie, conquistador, whatever, it doesn't matter what spectrum you're on, he said, I've found that everyone in America now agrees on three things. The first thing is that 2020 is when we found out that a lot of things are wrong. It's like the bus crashed, And my friend Dave Schaefer, who's here today, gave me the phrase that I'll say a couple of times this evening. It turned someday into today. How many of you grew up, someday it's going to collapse. Someday things are going to fall apart. Someday, Well, someday is today. That's what 2020 did for us. Number two, everybody agrees, I want to help fix it. Everybody wants to help fix it. Even those who are on very different political spectrums, opposing ends of spectrums, have sincerely held beliefs. Of course, we know the road to hell is made with sincerely, but sincere intentions. But I find that it doesn't help to assume that somebody's intentions are evil. I assume even people that are throwing bricks through buildings in cities, their intentions are good. Now, I disagree with them and their options, but to say that intentions are bad is to bag a person. That you just can't get anywhere in a conversation if you assume that somebody's intentions are bad. So everybody agrees, I want to fix it. And the third thing everybody agrees on is, I don't know how. I don't know how. So we're out here, we're floundering, everybody's kind of trying to find a way to fix it, a way to deal with it. And so, we live in a time of coaching. You got wellness coaches, health coaches, financial coaches, every kind of coach you can imagine, because we don't know how. So where are we? We're in 4 years of a declining longevity curve. Life expectancy has been decreasing for 4 years. That's never happened before, ever. It's an interesting thing. Food allergies are rampant. How many of you over 50 ever heard the word food allergy in elementary school? Never heard it. You didn't have to, if you wanted a birthday party for your kids, you didn't have to call every parent and ask, can we have peanuts? Or gluten in the bread or whatever. Now you can't even have a church potluck. You got to have the little, signs. Food allergies are rampant. I would simply suggest that when you disrespect food, it bats last, and it's having its revenge on us. In the last 40 years, we've gone from 18% of our GDP per capita expenditures, we've gone from 18% spent on food and 9% on health care to 18% on health care and 9% on food. Those two numbers have inverted in the last 30 years. I wonder if there's any reason. If there's any, collaboration between those two. Since 1940, the farmer has dropped from receiving 50% of the consumer dollar. So when somebody bought food, the farmer got 50% of that retail dollar. Today, the farmer gets less than 9%. That means we could have a national a new food policy that farmers don't get paid anything. They just have to work for free, and would only change the price of food 9%. That's astounding, isn't it? And that number is continuing to trend down. The farmland production value ratio has changed. My little 20-second soundbite to explain to my urban friends what's going on in the farm sector today is that when Mom and Dad bought our farm in 1961 in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley, they paid $90 an acre. And feeder calves were selling for $180, and an acre could raise a half a feeder calf a year, a season. So that was a $90, half of 180 is 90, are you with me on the math? Okay. $90 production per acre, and the land was $90 an acre, which is a 90 to 90, which is also a 1-to-1 ratio of production market value of the land to its market, to its sale value. Are you with me? Today, that land is $7,000 an acre. The feeder calf has gone up to $700, from $180. Half of that's $350. $350 production per acre, $7,000 market value per acre. That's a 20-to-1 ratio. That's why what Grandpa did doesn't work anymore. And if we don't figure out a different way to do things, farmers are going to be out of business. The average American farmer is now 60 years old. Any business book will tell you that in any economic sector, when the average practitioner in that economic sector is more than 35 years old, that's an economic sector in decline. Farming is at 60. And livestock farmers are 10 years older. So that means that in the next 15 years, 50%, if you have trouble with percentages, that's half, by the way. In the next 15, that's 15, not 50, 15 years, half of all America's agriculture equity is going to change hands. that has never happened in peacetime in any civilization in history. That level of agrarian equity transfer has never happened in peace in any civilization in history. It's always happened in conquest. Now, I'm not saying we're getting ready to be conquested. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. I'm just suggesting these are unprecedented times. That's my point. And the question is, where's that equity going to go? Expensive consequences. In 1940, the potato you ate was worth 4 potatoes today. Our vegetables are 1/4 as nutritious as they were in 1940. So today you have to eat 4 potatoes to get the nutrition of 1 in 1940. 4 beets to get the, if you like beets, to get the nutrition of 1 beet. 4, are you with me? Right through. My question is, I could go on in this vein for a long time. This could be a list that could take the whole time. I'll stop there. The question is, has this just happened? Are we the cultural victim of some cosmic conspiracy that just chose America to dump on? So there's some grand, victimization here. Or is there a reason? There's a general sense of unsettledness in our culture. Again, someday is here. It's today. There's a tsunami of changes going on around us. Since April of 2020, 1 million new backyard flocks of chickens have gone in the U.S. 1 million new backyard flocks of chickens. Seed companies can't keep up. Have you seen I call this a tsunami of changes. Seed companies can't keep up. If you're in a rural area, you know that there is an urban flight going on to homesteading and small acreages, do-it-yourself and self-reliance that is unprecedented. If you have a house on 5 acres, that thing won't be on the market for 24 hours and you'll get 15% more than you ask for it. That's nationwide, everywhere. People are fleeing urban sectors. It's like there's an intuitive understanding that when things go down, I don't want to be in the city. I recently read the story. It's an augment to the Diary of Anne Frank, and they've come out with a new book now written by and about the family that sheltered the Anne Frank family during the German occupation of Amsterdam. And my takeaway, and it's fascinating because it's all about how under that Nazi oppression and checkpoints everywhere and looking under baskets and what's in your bag and all of that went on, who survived and who didn't, and how they were able to keep these extra mouths, satisfied in the hidden room. And my takeaway from that book is that the people who didn't starve to death, and there were hundreds of thousands who starved to death in Amsterdam during that time, but the ones who didn't starve to death were the ones who had a connection to the country. They had a cousin, they had an acquaintance, they had a friend, they had something, they had some connection to the country. And so we're seeing literally urban flight coming to rural areas, and it's jacking up the price of rural small acreages and having huge implications. There's a backlog of freezers. Last year for 6-7 months you couldn't buy a freezer. In 2020, listen to this one. In 2020, 10 times the canning jars were sold nationwide than have ever been sold in any year before 2020. 10 times, not double, not triple, 10 times. Anybody that's in business for yourself, can you imagine, decahoop, whatever, anyway, a tenfold increase in whatever you make or sell or do or your service you provide, a tenfold, it's massive. Homeschool, charter school, online education. I think public education has taken a hit, maybe never to recover. except through, regulatory requirement. There's a lot of alternative ed going on. The home office. Most business pundits believe that 2020 pushed us 5 years faster down the road toward the non-commuter home office than we would have done otherwise. That's fascinating. Great. Online sales and the demise of the physical retail. How many stores have closed up for physical retail and are all going online? My goodness, think about Amazon. Amazon, as big as Amazon was coming into 2020, it is now twice as big 12 months later than it was beginning in 2020. Amazon. It's hard to fathom. Farmers are desperate for succession. There's an unprecedented number of farms for sale. I'm getting calls routinely. I help teach a school for Stockman Grass Farmer on succession, for farm succession. And the desperation on the tongues of farmers. My kids don't want it. I'm aging out. What in the world do I do? It's a big trend, big issue. And another trend is the abandonment of Marriott, Hilton, and Sheraton as conference venues. And there's a plethora of just entrepreneurial growth in rural, small, alternative venue kind of situations like this. Those are all wonderful and interesting trends. So in the last 20 years, globalism has replaced localism. Big social media has replaced cafe conversations. Zoom has replaced community. Screen time replaced FaceTime. Games replaced chores. Entitlements replaced responsibility. Censorship replaced civility. Impossible burgers are replacing cows. Drugs are replacing immune function. Fraud replaced wealth. Chemicals replaced earthworms. Nursing homes replaced family care. Flyover country replaced rural vibrancy. You get the picture. You get the picture. When we have more interest in censorship than conversations, when we have more interest in fantasy than faith, more interest in control than freedom, more interest in Wall Street than Main Street, more interest in life outside the home than life inside the home, more interest in things than relationships, more interest in money than truth, more interest in dominion than nurturing, more interest in blame than forgiveness. We are not headed to a good place. I'm just getting started. It starts with the need to care. It starts with the need to care. Many people, I'm sure you know people who wear WWJD wrists. What would Jesus do? Bracelets. It applies primarily to, premarital sex, drugs, obeying prohibitions against stealing and murder, things like that. I have a question. Would Jesus create a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico the size of Rhode Island with toxic chemical runoff? Would Jesus kill millions of fish in North Carolina from flood-overrun hog lagoons? Would Jesus create beings through genetic manipulation that his rules of nature specifically prevent? Would Jesus confine chickens in a house and cows in a feedlot? Would Jesus erode soil in order to produce corn and soybeans? At some point, we must care more about soil wealth than Wall Street wealth. We must care more about happy pigs than fatter, faster, bigger, cheaper pigs. We must care more about nutrition than pharmaceuticals. We must care more about quality than quantity. We must care more about work ethics than entitlement benefits. And we must care more about domestic food stockpile than whether a container ship gets stuck in the Suez Canal. We've been in unsettled times before, but we had the cultural equity to handle it. We knew how to butcher, how to hunt, how to grow gardens, how to spin fibers, how to cut wood, how to cook from scratch. We rolled up our sleeves and got after it. But after World War II, with cheap energy and newfound shared wealth, we turned to convenience. Farmers who ship food to urban customers. You pick up, one of my favorite books is Vertical Diversification by D. Howard Doane, written in about 1950. You open that book, I mean, he's just got example after example and pictures of farmers who were canning their vegetables, making chicken stock, packing eggs in boxes, and they were shipping them through the postal service to their urban customers 20 miles away, from farm to city. But in 1946, a new venue came to the country called the supermarket. With the invention of the supermarket, farmers could get rid of marketing and dealing with fickle urban consumers. They didn't have to fool with those people anymore. We all know that most of us farmers don't like people anyway. That's why we're farmers. In fact, most of us have a better relationship with our tractor than our spouse. Tractors never talks back to us. The cows are always happy to see us. When you turn the tractor steering wheel, it goes where you want it to. So farmers were happy to let middlemen and big processors and brands take over their independent marketing commerce. So the farmers quickly found themselves on the losing end of a corporate contract. And as they began competing with these large corporate interests, they found their market percentage dropping and dropping and dropping, and the margins got thinner and thinner and thinner. You with me? And because farmers were at the end of the food chain, they could fudge, and they were the most able of anyone in the food chain to cheat their own financials, like not paying their kids for labor, like working in town to supplement their farm addiction, like not replacing the soil carbon. They could cheat the ecology and not capturing true depreciation on their equipment. So that's the farmer end of it. Convenience. Let's just make this easy. I just want to grow corn. I don't want to deal with cornmeal or pancakes or customers. The second group that was happy for the convenience were consumers who found freedom in getting out of the kitchen. So they replaced home cooking with TV dinners, breastfeeding with Infomil and Similac. I've always thought that's one of the biggest resource wastes that we ever did in our culture, was that generation of all those breasts that didn't get used. It just was awful, awful. That's one of my better ones. Consumers found a lot of convenience in, instead of washing dishes, they replaced it with single-service packaging. No dishes to wash anymore. Now they're making all the packaging so you can eat the package too. So you get the processed meal, and then you eat the package, and you eat your cup, and all you do is excrete the cornstarch, and you don't have to take it to the landfill. Leftovers were replaced with the fast food lunch. I've decided that the single litmus test of do you get food is, are you eating leftovers? Because leftovers indicate that you cooked something from scratch, ate it together, and had leftovers, not single-service packages. So consumers found the convenience great, including, squeezable, non-moldable Velveeta cheese. Next, global corporations were glad to serve both of these interests. Let's replace manure and cover crops with chemicals. Let's replace soil biology with artificials. Let's replace the hoe and mower with herbicides. Let's replace pastured livestock with confined livestock. Let's replace the butter churn with margarine. Let's replace Soil-grown berries with hydroponics. Let's replace local markets with distant markets. Let's replace decentralized, democratized duplication with centralized bureaucratic enterprises. They were happy to oblige. And then the government regulations obliged to facilitate with revolving doors, grants, inspections, licensing, threats, and suits, all to provide oversight in an opaque system terrifying to the average person drunk on beer, TV, and fast food. So what are we to do about all this? So what do we have to care about? Well, I would suggest that we should care if our dinner is made, did our dinner make dancing earthworms or dying earthworms? That's worth caring about. Did our dinner help our neighbor or hurt our neighbor? Did our dinner honor life or dishonor life? Did our dinner build soil or deplete soil? Did our dinner increase the commons or decrease the commons? Why must we care? Because somebody has to create and preserve havens of hope and help to a civilization collapsing into hopelessness and helplessness. Stimulus checks will not save us. Social justice will not save us. Censorship will not save us. Cancel culture will not save us. Wokeness will not save us. Critical race theory will not save us. The Paris Climate Accord will not save us. Anthony Fauci will not save us. Donald Trump will not save us. Joe Biden won't save us. Kamala Harris won't save us. And toxins and face masks won't save us. What we need is a plan that offers 1,000-year abundance and legacy worth living for. Farms that attract young people. Food that nourishes people. Families that function. Communities that collaborate. Kitchens that culinate. Now, I made up that word, but you know what I'm talking about. Children that chore. Conversations that facilitate. Wealth that authenticates. Entertainment that enlightens. And farmscapes that teem with life. We have the knowledge, tools, skills, and protocols to change our trajectory. All we need is the courage, conviction, and commitment to care. On our farm, we have not brought back threshing rings, quilting bees, and pitchfork haymaking with horses, but we have replaced machines with people strategically. We've replaced drugs with management. We've replaced chemical fertilizer with compost, called the carbon economy. We've replaced stationary buildings with mobile structures. We've replaced petroleum with wood, the ultimate solar collector, trees. We've replaced trips to the lumber mill with our own sawmill. We've replaced appointments with town mechanics with an on-farm repair crew. So we're surrounded by people who know how to build things, grow things, and fix things, practicing community, mutual interdependence that feeds and secures our souls emotionally, spiritually, ecologically, and economically. That future is bright. Will you build it with me? Thank you.
All right, if you'll give us just a couple minutes to reset the stage here. Everybody online, just hang tight. Just after 1 or 2 minutes, we'll get set and bring out some live music and entertainment by none other than Rory Feek. Just give us a couple minutes. Thank you. guys ready for some tunes? Some stories and songs? From a blogger, filmmaker, author, songwriter, most importantly, my neighbor, and good friend and dad, Mr. Rory Feek.
How are y'all? That was pretty good, wasn't it? I don't have to talk at all after him. I'm glad he mentioned the part about the wasted resource of breasts. That way I don't have to talk about that. Only Joel. How many of y'all, that's your first time to hear Joel talk? Wow. I love that. Well, I'll just start singing then. One day when I was a little down on my luck, I stood on the highway in the rain, and I sent up a prayer for a heaven-bound truck, and like an angel a diesel it came. Well, the truck driver said he was a good Christian man, and he laid the salvation on thick. He held two plastic statues in the palm of his hand, and he told me to just take my pick. He said, I keep mine facing the highway. That dashboard's a good place to stand. I'd rather have Jesus watch where I'm going, 'cause he already knows where I've been. Somewhere outside Texas, we parted ways, and I kept his advice through the years. Wherever I'm riding, I make sure it stays between the radio dial and the mirror. And I keep mine facing the highway. That dashboard's a good place to stand. I'd rather have Jesus watch where I'm going, 'cause he already knows where I've been. He knows where I've drifted, he knows where I've sinned. He's there to make sure I don't go there again. A guy like me needs all the help he can get. So as a gentle reminder, I'm not perfect yet. I keep mine facing the highway. That dashboard's a good place to stand. I'd rather have Jesus watch where I'm going, 'cause he already knows where I've been. How many of y'all have been here to see me or my wife and I play here before? A few of you, quite a few of you. This was upstairs in the green room up there. It's from 2015, and I've never seen it before, but that's us. We were coming here to play that year. Thank you. But it has our bio and all kinds of information and the date that we're playing, but then it says, at the time, it said, due to Joey needing time to recover from her cancer surgery, she will be staying home, and Rory and their daughter will be performing, which we did. And when I was here that time, I think that was one of the very last concerts that I played for a few years. And of course, at the time, we had no idea where our story was going to take us, what was going to happen. We were hoping and praying for something much different. But my wife passed away just a few months later, right after our little girl, Indiana, turned 2. She is now 7 years old. I can see her near the top of the hill. And she promised me when Papa started singing, she would come down and listen. She has her back to me, playing with kids, just as I would hope. Life has taken some unexpected turns, but it's been incredibly beautiful. I've learned that it's not always going to be sunshine. It's going to be some rainy times too. And one of the recent rainy times for me was when I was here last year. I was so inspired by the ranch. I've been here a lot of times. I've been here 3 or 4 years in a row now, and I think I'm coming back every year until Frank won't have me anymore. This is now my second home, just so you know. I'm claiming it. This is really wonderful. We look forward to it every summer. This year's a little different. We came out here. We only brought my flip phone. We didn't bring a computer, so no one can text me, email me. No one can get a hold of me. I can't do anything. I can't see anything. You can call me if you have my number, and I might answer. I can't even check the voice messages. And believe it or not, it's fantastic. It really has been good. But when I was here last year, I was so inspired by Frank and all the concerts and the different people that are performing that I went home. I made a decision that we were going to turn our concert hall. We have a concert hall on our farm, a 300-seat venue. We would turn it into a place for people to play. Because when we were here last year, they didn't allow any audience to be here. So we had to just be here by ourselves with a few cameras. And back where I lived in Tennessee, it was a lot more open in our county. And I thought, well, I have a place. I'll just open it up to people. I'm sure that'll be fine. And I used, Joel Salatin has a slogan on the front of his store, and I put his sign on the front of my door at the concert hall. And last October we opened up, and it just said one thing. It basically just said mask with a big question mark. Your body, your health, your choice. And we proceeded to have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of concerts. And I hugged everybody. I took pictures, not just our concerts, but everybody. I mean, just dozens. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And everybody got sick. I mean, not everybody in the concert, but, now and then people got sick and all that sort of stuff. Until about 2 weeks ago, and then I got really sick. And so I think I finally got it. But I won't know because I didn't go see anybody or test. But if I cough a lot during this is because I'm still lingering on. That to say, that's my disclaimer if I suck tonight. I am a songwriter. That's what I do. That's what I've done for a living. And even though I write books and I've done a lot of film and video and all that kind of stuff, I approach everything as a songwriter, and I love songwriting because of stories. I'm going to sing and share a few of those with you. This is, from time to time, one of my songs will find its way to the radio, and this is really how I've made my living most of the time, is that someone will record one of my songs. This one was recorded by a young man named Easton Corbin. I'm not sure how long ago it was, but it seems like a long time ago because there isn't any money anymore. But it was a really big blessing at the time, and I'm sure thankful for it. It's called I'm a Little More Country Than That. Imagine a dirt road full of potholes and a creek bank with some cane poles catching channel cat. I'm a little more country than that. Think of a small town with an old hound laying out front of the courthouse as the old men chew the fat. I'm a little more country than that. I just want to make sure you know just who you're getting under this old hat. 'Cause girl, I'm not the kind to two-time or play games behind your back. I'm a little more country than that. Well, think of a Merle song from days gone with a steel rag that's so strong it sends chills up your back. I'm a little more country than that. If you want a brick home in a school zone with the doors locked and alarms on, well, honey, you're way off track. I'm a little more country than that. Yeah, I'm sure that you've heard those 3 words from others, but they fell flat. But this ring ain't something that I mean to give you and then take back. I'm a little more country than that. I'm a little more country than that. I'm a little more country than that. Thank you. Another song that I wrote a number of years ago with a guy named Paul Overstreet. He's been out here and played a few times. Paul and I, Paul has written a lot of really well-known family and faith songs, like I come from a long line of love, and When You Say Nothing at All, and Seeing My Father in Me, and On the Other Hand, all kinds of songs. But when him and I got together, I thought we were going to write some wonderful songs together like that. But instead, the first song we wrote was called You Never Get Too Old to Do It. And it was kind of about family, but in a different way. And then we wrote another song called Baby's Got Some Big Ones. But it was about her dreams that she has. And for a little while, my wife was thinking, well, maybe you shouldn't write with that fella anymore. Until we wrote this song. And Blake Shelton recorded it. It's called Some Beach, and it did really, really well. And then my wife said, you should write with him all the time, honey. So I'll try and play it for you. Driving down the interstate, running 30 minutes late, singing Margaritaville, minding my own. Some foreign car driving dude with a road rage attitude pulled up beside me, talking on his cell phone. He started yelling at me like I did something wrong, and he flipped me the bird, and then he was gone. Some beach somewhere, there's a big umbrella casting shade over an empty chair. There's palm trees growing and warm breezes blowing. I can picture myself right there on some beach somewhere. Well, I circle the parking lot, trying to find a spot big enough I could park my old truck. Some man with a big cigar was getting into his car. I stopped and I waited for him to back up. From out of nowhere, a Mercedes-Benz came cruising up and whipped right in. Some beach somewhere, there's nowhere to go, and we got all day to get there. There's music and dancing and lovers romancing in the salty evening air on some beach somewhere. Now, when we originally wrote this song, it's been a good while back, the last verse was about going to the dentist office, which was no fun. But we've since got a little older, and we've had to go visit a different kind of doctor. and it's even less fun. And so the last verse is changed to this. Well, I sat in that waiting room. It seemed like all afternoon till the nurse finally said, "Docs are ready for you. You're not gonna feel a thing. We'll smear you with Vaseline. You're gonna be fine in a minute or two." Then he started putting on that rubber glove, and he touched my backside like we were in love. Some beach somewhere, there's a beautiful sunset burning up the atmosphere. There's cold margaritas and hot senoritas smiling with long dark hair on some beach somewhere. Yeah, on some beach somewhere. Thank you. I moved to Nashville in 1995. I actually moved there in 1994, but I didn't last very long. I had to move back to Texas, which is where I was living, because we were starving to death, and I had to come up with a better plan. But one of the songs that inspired me to move to Nashville was a song called 16th Avenue by a lady named Lacey J. Dalton. She sang here last night. How many of y'all were here for that? Well, y'all really missed out on it, but Lacey J's right over there. Can you stand up so they can at least wave to you? That's her. If you don't know the song, it's an amazing song that talks about, especially back then, which is around 1985, talks about being a songwriter in Nashville, which was not something that most people were talking about. And it was talking about one street in Nashville on Music Row called 16th Avenue. And it told the story of how people moved from everywhere, from all walks of life. And they showed up with a guitar and a bunch of songs. And I was one of those guys. And one of the reasons I did it that way is because the song said that's how you have to do it. So I'm going to do you a song. If you know that song, well, it's not worth reaching for my pick. I'm not that good with a pick anyway. But this song is kind of a little bit of my arrival in Nashville story. He was different. He was one of a kind, as far as daddies went. And not just 'cause he was mine, he could build anything. With his two calloused hands, my old man. He drove an old truck. He could have had a newer one, floorboards full of rust. But he sure loved the way it run. I learned to drive in it, in the pastures on our land, with my old man. One day he caught me in a light, and with his belt he tanned my behind. And I saw the teardrops in his eyes falling down just as hard as mine. When you're born a farmer, it's what you want your son to be. And he was broken-hearted when I said I'm going to Tennessee. But who sold that old truck? And But who sold that old truck and stuck the money in my hand? My old man. When I got on that big Greyhound with my bag full of songs and my guitar, I remember looking down and him yelling, "Son, remember who you are." He fought a good fight, but in the end it took him down. We told him goodbye, and then we prayed him in the ground. Now he's with Jesus, walking in the promised land. My old man. I'm so proud when people say just how much I am like my old man. Thank you. So, the only part about that song that's true for me is the part where I showed up in Nashville with a guitar and a bunch of songs in my arm. The dad part's not true. I wrote that song with Luke Bryan a long time ago, and we were mostly talking about his daddy, not mine. And I didn't know my dad very well. My dad was not a farmer. He worked on the railroad, and he wanted to do what I do. He wanted to move to Nashville and be a singer. But he worked on the railroad, and he passed away pretty young, long before I ever moved to Nashville and chased his dream. It became my own. But I love that song because I love that man. Yes, sir. I'll take a water and an ice cream. No, but you could do me a big favor. If Papa sent an ice cream up to Indiana, she would be really happy with Papa. She likes chocolate. Thank you, sir. Anyway, I love that song. I love songs in general. Even if you write them, you learn a lot from them. And so that song is about a farmer who had a really strong value system. And although my father wasn't the same, the thing I like about that is that guy becomes an example for me. And I'm a new farmer. That's why I love Joel Salatin. That's why he's one of my heroes, is because I'm a new farmer. I may not have had a father like that guy, but I could be a father like that guy. And I think that's one of the great things. Like when Joel said, will you join me? It's like, yes, I'll join you. Today's the day. Today is someday. Anyway, so I moved to Nashville in 1995. Well, the second time in 1995 to stay. And I started writing songs, and after a few years, I started having some success. And a lot has happened since then for me. And so I'll do a song that's kind of the end of the songwriting story. It's not really the end, but it'll take you on a long journey all the way through. So here's another one. This is a little bit more like me looking back on the last. Can you imagine? So from 1995 until now, let's don't count them. We'll just say it's a lot of years. I've been a waiter, a roofer, a clerk. I've shoveled manure until my pride hurt. When you're starting out, it's all part of the work to do what I do. I've been evicted for not making rent, made my daddy wonder where my good sense went. For the price of a dream, my years have been spent to do what I do. To sit here tonight with a 6-string guitar and be what I've always been in my heart, just for the chance to play you my song, and the thrill when I hear you singing along has been worth everything I've been through to do what I do. Now, I've played for empty tables and chairs, to drunks that don't listen and crowds that don't care. I've been told countless times, boy, you ain't going nowhere to do what I do. And I hope the critics and the skeptics alike all bought a ticket to this show tonight. They'll see firsthand that I have survived, and what doesn't kill you makes you more alive. And I'm one of the fortunate few to do what I do. There's so much joy this music can bring, and I count my blessings when I step up to sing, 'cause there's so many people who'd give anything to do what I do. And I thank all of you. I can do what I do. So I have a new album. I'm not much of a hawker of new albums, although some people would disagree with me about that. I've never had an album before. I've never had my own record before. My wife and I have made a few records, and that's always been a lot of fun, but I never had really thought about it until this last year, and I'm super proud of it, and so I want to share it with you. I want to share it with you so much that I drove here. Well, the reason that matters is if I flew here, I wouldn't have brought any copies with me. But because I drove here, I brought a bunch of them with me, and they're free for you. So as long as you, I know Joel would love to say hello to you, but I have some copies over here, so you just have to say hello to me, and I'll give you a free CD. And I can do that because it's my CD. But I'm also really proud of it. I'm also proud of the fact that when my little girl was back in the green room and Papa was working on her Papa's set list, I was trying to think of songs I should sing, and she said, "Sing Gentleman, Papa." Now, that's a 7-year-old. Now, you have to hear this song. She could pick a lot of songs. She could sing "Cheater, Cheater, No Good White Trash Ho, Papa," which, by the way, she doesn't sing it that way. She does love that song. She says, "Cheater, cheater, where'd you meet that no good black trash bag?" Which I'm fine with. I don't want to correct her. Oh, a lot of you may not even know that song, so it's not even funny. But if you knew that song, you'd know it's funny. Anyway, so I'm going to do this for Indiana, and do this for all the daddies that are out there tonight. The new daddies, the daddies that will be. I saw a pretty girl, her hands all full, headed in the store. So I stepped back, tipped my hat, and opened up the door. Just being polite, she thought it strange. She smiled at me and said, "Times have changed. Guys don't do that kind of thing anymore. Being a gentleman might be out of style these days. Might not be cool when being a fool is all the rage. But it's in my blood, it's what I know, how I was raised. Man, this is who I am. A faded jean, farmer tan, work boots, calloused tan, redneck, blue collar, hard-working gentleman. Well, long story short, of course, I had to ask her out, show her what my old-fashioned ways are all about. Well, I still hear her laugh at me when I got down there on one knee. It's funny 'cause the thing she loves most about me now is being a gentleman. Might be out of style these days, might not be cool when being a fool is all the rage. But it's in my blood, it's what I know, how I was raised. Man, this is who I am. A faded jean, farmer tan, work boots, calloused tan, redneck, blue collar, hard-working gentleman. So I guess that's why I'm here, telling you this, son. The time is gonna come when you meet someone, and being a gentleman might be out of style these days, might not be cool when being a fool is still all the rage. But it's in your blood, it's what you know, how you were raised. So son, if you can, be a gentleman. A gentleman. Thank you. You having a good evening? You have a Marcy Joe's shirt on. Thank you. Did you order that online or did you go there? You were there. That's a long drive for a cinnamon roll. We have a family restaurant about a mile from our farmhouse, and my wife and my sister opened it in 2007. And it's done really well. As a matter of fact, it's franchised. There's now 3 locations. The second location, my sister, because she's a smart business lady, she was so excited about franchising that she was hoping maybe to do one in Gatlinburg. We live outside of Nashville a little ways in a farm. And she was hoping to do one in Gatlinburg or maybe down on the beach somewhere, but instead a little place about 3 miles from where her restaurant is came open, so she opened a second location 3 miles from the first one. So she is her own competition. And then about a year and a half ago, my other sister and I opened a third location in the same county, but downtown on the square, so we have our county all sewn up when it comes to cinnamon rolls. Next time you come, you have to go to all 3 locations. Here's another song off the new album. Let me see if I can figure out where to sing this. Something like maybe right here. Our friend Frank Smith talks about the culture of community a lot and the importance of community. This last year with the pandemic, the thing that hit home to me the most was we were already in the right place. We were already growing a garden. We were headed down a path of trying to be as self-sustaining as we can, not because we were afraid something might happen, just because we thought it was a better life. We thought the food would be better. We thought it would be better for us. It would make us be outside. And last spring, when everything shut down, it just made us say, well, let's do all the things we've always wanted to do. Let's get the cows we want to get. Not someday. Today is someday. So we got 5 cows. But guess what? We have 6 now. So we've had our first calf, which is a big deal. I mean, I'm basically a rancher now. I wasn't a rancher last year when I was here, so just so you know, it's new. We have pigs. We not only have pigs in our field, we have pigs in our freezer. That's something we wanted to do for a long time. We've been growing a lot of our own stuff, and it's been really, really wonderful. Another part is that came from last year was we didn't go anywhere outside of our community. I didn't go to Nashville even. I don't think I went to Nashville but once in a whole year, and that's only 40 miles away. And that felt like how a lot of older people grew up. They just didn't go, they didn't drive 30 miles to go to dinner the way that we all do all the time. And so it kept us in our community, and it was life-changing for me because I needed them more than I thought I did. And they needed me more than they thought they needed me. We needed each other. And we didn't have the sense of community. We had community. And the little restaurant is one of those places that help that. All the restaurants, all the small businesses all around. But this one is really about the restaurant. No, it's not the song Marcy Joe's Meal House, although that's a good one too. This one's sort of about it. This was social media before there was social media. When you had to find out all the news from your neighbors. There's a paper in the box outside. Headline reads, Nixon dies. Don't nobody pay no mind. They just go on about their ways. But Hubert Turner's barn burned down. He says he lost 3 good cows. And that's big news at the Small Talk Cafe. It's a meeting place at the break of day for the people in this town. Things that happen round these parts are all they care about. Widow Cooper had a man come calling yesterday, and that's big news at the Small Talk Cafe. Shuttle makes another trip. The market takes a record dip. Folks don't think too much of it. Then in walks Luther Jones. Says there was a wreck last night. A truck took out the co-op sign. And that's big news at the Small Talk Cafe. It's a meeting place at the break of day for the people in this town. And things that happen round these parts are all they care about. They say it's been so dry this year, there won't be any hay. And that's big news at the Small Talk Cafe. You know what I mean? I can see 'em all in there, every face in every chair. I bet they're all a-wondering where I've been the past few days. When they hear that you left me, don't you know that's gonna be big news at the Small Talk Cafe. It's a meeting place at the break of day for the people in this town. Things that happen round these parts are all they care about. They say they've never seen a man fall apart this way. And that's big news at the Small Talk Cafe. That's big news at the Small Talk Cafe. How many grandmothers do we have in the audience? Well, it's okay. You can raise your hand. This one's for the grandmamas. It's another song off of my new free album. Just so you know what you're going to get. Satan knew my grandma well. He could hear prayers clear down in hell. She made him wish he'd never fail. Yes, Satan knew my grandma well. He tried his best to test her faith when he sent Grandpa to his grave. He talked her into blaming herself. Yes, Satan knew my grandma well. With a Bible for a sword and shield, she fought him on the battlefield. Kneeled down beside her bed. 4 hours on that tear-stained floor till he couldn't take it anymore. He'd even pray to hear her say amen. Satan knew my grandma well. He could hear prayers clear down in hell. He'd get so mad he'd burn himself. Yeah, Satan knew my grandma well. I was 6 years old in Sullivan Park. Satan tried to get me in his car, but he sped away when he heard her yell. Yes, Satan knew my grandma well. With a Bible for a sword and shield, she fought him on the battlefield. Kneeled down beside her bed. 4 hours on that tear-stained floor till he couldn't take it anymore. He'd even pray to hear her say amen. Amen. Satan sighed with great relief the day that Grandma got her wings. Now she's somewhere she can finally rest. Satan knew my grandma well, but Jesus knew my grandma best. Yeah, Satan knew my grandma well, but Jesus knows my grandma best. I'm going to do you one more song, and then I think Gabe's going to come back up here, and we'll do something different. Are you all having a nice evening? One of my favorite songs on the new album is this one. I didn't write it. I've known this song for a long time. And I've loved it, and I've hoped someday if I ever made a record I could record this song. It's a song I could relate to. It's about a man who goes into a bar every night and drinks himself into oblivion. Now, That's not exactly me, although I've had my moments. But it's about a man searching to find someone he loves in a new way, even after she's gone. And I can relate to that. He circled and stared, nervous and scared. He knew both the thrill and the cost. But he didn't think twice. This amazing device was his last chance to see what he lost. If time is really a river, then upstream's where he needed to be. He set his sights on the past, and he finished his glass and went back in his story. To the casual eye, it's a bar stool, but it's really much more than it seems. A few drinks and then she'll be with him again as he sits on the time machine. Like all pioneers, he swallowed his fears, and he watched the whole room fade to black. He's dying to go, but he's no fool. He knows how hard it will be to come back. But tonight he's tired of the lonely, and tomorrow will not be the cure. So he'll just slip away, find yesterday, and spend one more night with her. Now as far as these customers can tell, he's just one more fool who talks to himself. But every man in this place would line up if they knew what that seed really was. To the casual eye, it's a bar stool, but it's really much more than it seems. A few drinks and then she'll be with him again as he sits on the time machine. I have my own time machine, real similar but a little different. To the casual eye, it's a bar stool, but it's really much more than it seems. A few songs and then I'm with her again as I sit on the time machine. Thank y'all. Come on back up here, Gabe. Gabe McCauley, Joel, you're coming back up here too. I think they're going to reset a couple of things. I believe the idea is we're going to have a little bit of a conversation. Me and you, me and Joel, Gabe and me, Gabe and Joel. It's going to get kind of complicated. But we're hoping it could be fun. Can you guys bring a chair for Joel too? And I'll move out of the way a little bit. How many of y'all traveled a long way to be here tonight? Where did you come from? Elliston, Montana, okay. Minneapolis, Minnesota. Plant City, Florida. Sandpoint, Idaho. Any other places? That's pretty far. How many of y'all live real close by? Oh. This is Brooke. Isn't he doing a great job with sound? Well, and I can speak for all of us, we're sure thankful you came tonight. It's a blessing to get to sing some songs and to talk and share with you all.
We've been sending everything you've been doing tonight out onto the internet.
Oh, the interweb.
And there's been a few questions that have been asked.
Okay.
So we could start with some of that. Somebody wants to know, of course, we kind of figure you're probably doing some farming as usual, but somebody wanted to know about Rory and his garden, and I happen to know that his garden this year is pretty legit. Like he is, I hope it's still that way when you get back after a month.
I hope
in
so
July in Tennessee, but yeah, it's looking real good.
Yeah, my wife grew a very big garden, and she was really, really good at it. And then after she passed away, I had to figure out whether we just had a garden because she had a garden or I wanted one. And so at first I tried to make one like she did, and I did poorly. And then me and Indy made a real little one, and we did okay. And last year we took off, and we did pretty well. We did a good-sized garden. And then I left, and I didn't have anybody caring for it when I went away. And so I heard that I was gone a month, and it was so overgrown by the time I came back. My brother-in-law, Keith, I'm sure he's listening tonight, hooked up the, I'm not going to, but well, anyway, he hooked up the bush hog, and and it has irrigation through it and stuff too. He just drove through the whole thing. So that when I came home, I couldn't see how bad it was. I mean, I could see how bad the job was bush hogging the garden down, but I couldn't see how overgrown it was. And I couldn't blame him because I left them a lot to do. But this year, it's really a beautiful garden, and it was just starting to produce really well. And we've been doing a gathering in our barn with just neighbors every Sunday. And so a bunch of my neighbors came over the day that we left, the night before we left, and we spent 3 or 4 hours with them. And I turned it over to them, and they all said they would take care of it. So I hope they're listening tonight and trying. But if not, it's okay. Part of the fun of the garden is just doing the work and doing the best you can. And I can't be upset if I come home and it's not perfect, or even if it's not there. It's okay.
So for you folks out here tonight, we'll open questions up to you folks, and so be thinking about that. For you guys on the hill, you'll have to yell really loudly, but be thinking about that, and we'll open that up here in a minute. But before we get into that, I thought it would be good because, as you mentioned, you called it Joey. We call it Joey's garden a lot of the time because it was really Joey that had such a passion for it. You really had not done much with that before,
right. And
really, it was Joey who led you to Joel. And could you tell us that story, how you...
Yeah, so my wife was a homesteader at heart, for sure. She grew up in Indiana. Her mother was a serious farm girl. She's 73 or 4, and she is the stockiest, hardest working woman you've ever seen. Like every day, she's out just chopping wood and doing everything. You can't get her on the phone because she's too busy working on the farm. And Joey got a lot of that work ethic from her, and so early on when we got married, she was trying to learn to do some of the things her mother and grandmother did, and one was raising and harvesting chickens. And so she didn't have her grandmother or mother close by because we were in Nashville, so she went to grandfather YouTube and started watching Joel's videos. And that's how I first came to see Joel and admire him, because we started watching his videos, and then we were processing chickens there at home. And then we started learning more and more and more and more. And then over time, we actually made a trip one time to Joel's farm. We were playing a show in Virginia, and we had a a day off, and we drove basically all night and parked across from his driveway, and then the next day, we just walked around his farm without him knowing it. We were big fans.
I wasn't there.
You weren't there. No, I don't
wasn't
think
there.
you were there. And that's the thing about Joel, is Joel's farm is open. Like he doesn't just, like, this isn't just an idea for him. He wants you to come and see it. So we walked around and we took all kinds of pictures of his chicken tractors, the way that he would make them. And then when we came home, Joey had me make some just like Joel's. And then years later, I got to meet Joel and become friends with him. So yes, Joey is how I met Joel.
And really, from Joel, you've moved on from just the garden. As you mentioned before, now you have cows, you have pigs, you have chickens, and you're implementing a lot of...
These are all things that Joey and I talked about doing. We just never got there. We never got there. And in COVID, we're not the only ones. Like, lots and lots of people. You were talking about like 1 million new backyard flocks of chickens. So that's really what spurred it on more than anything else was the time and the opportunity.
So what's next for you, Joel? How has 2020 shifted your trajectory, or has it? Has it just amplified
it? It's from the farm, the business standpoint, there's been some pretty big shifts. I mean, the first thing, we were servicing about 50 restaurants prior to COVID, and that's dropped to about 5. Most are out of business, gone out of business. And, when you take somebody's business, well, it's not a good thing. The arrogance, the very arrogance, the tyranny of it. But anyway, and they're not going to come back. So fortunately, in 2019, we went off of our reservation. We'd always been almost cultishly loyal. Local, cultishly local.
And loyal.
Loyal, but local oriented. We didn't ship. We didn't, we were. But with the increase of the logistics and the efficiency of distribution, and we started seeing people, they wouldn't even drive out 10 miles. Why should I do that when I can sit in my jammies on the bed and punch a screen and get it delivered to my door? And so we started, seeing, look, nostalgia's great till it's obsolete. and so if you're familiar with a little business book, Who Moved My Cheese? The 2 little mice, they get up every morning and they go through this maze and they find their cheese. And one morning they get up and they go to work and it's not there. And so it's about, how when culture changes and your context changes, you gotta find a new way to get to your cheese. And that's kind of where we were. So July 4th, 2019, we launched shipping, national shipping. And, it was very much a gentle beginning, but boy, that thing just blew up in 2020 when the store shelves were empty, and we were so thankful that we had about 6 months of whatever, figuring it out under our belt before the onslaught came. And that has literally replaced the restaurants. So if we hadn't had that, we know farms that went bankrupt, lots of them that went bankrupt, if they were pretty much a restaurant trade farm, and there were lots of them, specialty artisanal craft farms, specialty restaurants, and so we were really grateful for that decision to do that. And then the other thing that happened for me personally was I quit traveling. There were no conferences. I was gone, 130 days a year, traveling internationally all over the world, doing seminars and conferences and workshops and things. And that just, of course, stopped cold turkey. And that's not what we depend on for our income, but it's some nice pocket change. And you don't have to buy trucks and tractors and chicken feed and waterers and lumber and, to do that. You're just leveraging your mental experience and capacity and storytelling. So there's not a lot of overhead to it, except for your time. And so said, well, what do we do? And I got to looking and realizing that these conference centers there were billions of dollars out there floating, and there were lots of organizations that wanted to get together, but they didn't want to do it at a hotel or a conference center. I said, is there a way that we can kind of tap into that? So over the winter, we conceived of a plan to offer the farm as a platform for gatherings for organizations that wanted to get together. We can handle 300 people. We can feed them well. We've got great staff, lots of hospitality. It's a beautiful location on a dirt road at the end of a cliff, but it's out there. It's a destination place. It's nobody ever comes and says, I was just driving by. You've got to want to get there. And so we offered this out, and the response has been enormous. So we're doing 7 gatherings this year on the farm. We've done 3. We've got 4 more to go. The last one will be Rory for a harvest celebration in first of the week of November. But the venue is our big hoop house. We can seat 300 people in there, and it's real. The acoustics are fantastic. You sang there 2 years ago.
Something like that.
Yeah. And the hoop house is kind of like a silo, It's that, and so so 2 of the 7 are our events. 5 of them are organizations that said, yeah, we'd like to get together, and we'd like to do it somewhere other than a conference center. And that way, organizations that want good food, they don't have to fuss with the hotel chef and we feed them our food. And it's the best food in the world, and everybody leaves levitating on the cloud 9 because they've had this wonderful experience of food. So that has replaced my travel. So if I never go anywhere again, it'll be fine. So those are some those are some of the big changes that we're seeing in our own personal business structure.
It is great food, and who wants to sit in a sterile, air-conditioned, fluorescent lighting hotel when you could sit on a hay bale and listen to chickens while you're,
right,
having a conference? It's pretty great, actually.
Yeah. Kids can come. We've got a playground. We've got a corn box. Listen, anybody can have a sandbox. We've got a corn box. And it's full of, Tonka toys, and, you can sit on it, the track hose and stuff you can sit on, and kids, and they just love it. And that's right adjacent to the hoop house. So you've got pond, kids can fish, they can be in the corn box, on the teeter-totters, parents can be right, it's just a real, you don't have to worry about, somebody picking them off the street, or where are they, it's very, very secure.
And you're working on a new toilet, so I'm excited about that.
On the new toilet?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's going to be world class. So we've worked with the best waterless toilet consultants in the world. I
haven't heard about this.
What some people don't know is that whenever I used to travel, every time I could see or find a waterless toilet set up, that was the first thing I wanted to go see. So I've seen them all over the world. And so we've gleaned the best things from all those waterless toilets and brought them, and our staff, and we've designed and created what we think is going to be the ultimate Taj Mahal waterless toilet. It's not composting; it uses red wiggler worms, and the worms fundamentally change. Listen, around our house, every conversation eventually moves to poop.
There we go.
Poop drives everything. It drives everything. And the table, the dinner, every conversation ends up at poop. And so we have spent hours and hours poring over designs and ideas. And the problem with waterless is, you have a chamber, and you can't use the whole chamber because the chamber's square, like concrete blocks or something. But it falls in as a pyramid. So you lose half of your cubic area of your. There are just a lot of logistical things involved here.
I haven't spent that much time thinking about it.
Not the least of which you're working with a bunch of urban people who don't know what to do, and the carbon element. How much do you put in a scoop per poop? Well, and And it's a real deal. So we've actually created a PVC Y. So everybody wants to push the flush, you know. And so the flush, instead of flushing it, actually releases the right amount of carbon in it. So nobody has to scoop poop. You just and boom, it gets a little two-way valve. And the worms do everything. And it's going to be so. I wanted to call it, so I'm the wordsmith, right? I'm the writer, the wordsmith, the dramatist, theater. So I wanted to call it Winnie the Pooh. And I got upstaged by my grandson, Travis, who proposed Can of Worms. And that has won out in the voting. You know, you put this out, you throw this on the
as you
vote.
should.
And it's a can of worms. So the can of worms. So now we can say can of worms. So that acronym is COW. So I got to go to the cow. I got to go to the cow.
Good.
So that'll be the place.
And Rory, when are you putting one of these in at your place?
I hadn't really considered it before, but maybe will you have one in?
We're hoping the slab is poured, so we're well
I'm getting
on
a little
the way.
sidetracked with the idea of the poo and the red wiggler worms. We'll have to spend more time.
It's a sophisticated design. Because the problem is the urine. Because the urine makes everything too wet.
That's what I thought that was the problem.
Yeah, that's really the problem. It's not the poo, it's the urine. It's the number one, not the number two. So
I never expected this to go here.
yeah. So
I'm glad I asked.
So there's a way to create ventilation to get air moving across, to evaporate a lot of the liquid, to keep the moisture the right consistency, so you don't suffocate the worms.
Yeah. Don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
No. It's a very, very sophisticated thing, but we're pretty excited about it. It's,
I can tell.
When you come for a
I can
visit,
tell.
we think if it works well, like we hope it will, we think that this will be like
highlight.
One of the best memories of the visit is going to the cow.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I mean, not everybody gets to ride a cow. You know.
Think of all the social media posts.
Yeah.
Just hashtag went to the cow, you know, or whatever.
The biggest problem is people putting in stuff that you don't want in there.
Yeah, sure.
So we thought about putting surveillance cameras in, you know. So
Probably not the best idea. We'll see. So anyway, Rory, you got a new album.
we said this was going to be spontaneous.
I sure did.
This is unplanned.
Yeah.
You started it.
Yeah, I did. I don't regret it either. That was a good time. So, Rory, your new album, it's actually your first.
It is my first record. Yeah, my first album. You know, years ago when I was first in town, I mean, for a number of years, I did make some albums, but those were like, I'm sure your wife made those when you made your own homemade CD and you printed a label and you tried to sell some just so you'd have enough gas money to get home at the end of the day. So I had a few of those a long time ago, but not a real album before. This is the first time.
Yeah. Besides your
the
duet.
Joey and I's, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, how has that experience been? I know when we earlier talked to you, you were a little bit nervous about it. You'd never, thought of really doing this. Had some friends that encouraged you, I believe.
I moved to Nashville to be a songwriter, and so when I got kind of drawn into the spotlight, pulled into the spotlight with Joey, I didn't expect that. So it was an incredible opportunity to do all sorts of things, from coming to here to so many other things. But she was an amazing singer, and I sang with her, and it just never really crossed my mind to sing on my own. Until a few years later, when I started singing again on stage, I'm a storyteller, so I found myself thinking, well, what would you say if you could say? What would you do? And because I've mostly just been singing the songs we've done through the years. But that started last, maybe last spring or something like that. We went and messed around a little bit on the song. And by the fall, it turned into a full album. And then, a bunch of heroes of mine sang on the record with me. So it's become much more than I ever imagined. And even my part of it, like I'm as surprised as everybody else how wonderful it is.
Yeah.
I really am.
Oh, it's been doing great. You just played the Opry. You were on the CBS Sunday morning. No.
Yeah, we were on Today Show.
The
Today Show, and then we'll be on Huckabee here in a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were mentioning you had some heroes on there. Can you?
Yeah, so Dolly Parton sings on there with me. Alison Krauss, Leanne Womack, Trish Yearwood, Ricky Skaggs, Vince Gill.
Come on.
And more.
Come on.
Big names.
Yes, I'm so thankful. On my free album.
Inquiring minds want to know, this is from the internet, mind you, do you still have the Girls Gone Wild bus?
Do I still have the girls? Do you guys know about the Girls Gone Wild bus? No. So my wife and I had a tour bus. Well, we've had a couple tour buses through the years, but when she got sick, our bus driver, Russell, sold the bus, and we weren't going to need it anymore because we weren't traveling anymore. But then a number of years later, when I started singing again, Russell found another tour bus for us, and he brought it to the farm and started fixing it up. And it's really, really beautiful, and we use it. We actually brought it out here last year. We had it here the whole time we were here. And it's a beautiful white bus, but before it was our bus, before it was a Toddlers Gone Wild bus, it was actually the Girls Gone Wild bus. So it's kind of a redemption story. There were things that happened on that bus that we don't want to know about.
Yeah.
But now it's a really, really special thing.
Now it's a sanctified bus.
It's sanctified, yeah. Redemptive.
What do you think's next for you, Rory? Are you still going to be writing, vlogging? We're going to put out another album?
I have no idea. I haven't been blogging very much. I haven't been vlogging very much. I'm not sure. There's been a lot of conversation the last couple of months about more television, if we're going to do another television series. And I'm not sure. I'm just, even while I'm out here, so I use this time as a real prayerful time while I'm here to just reflect on the year that's happened for myself and my family, and also prayerful on where we're going. So I don't have an answer to that, but I'm excited about what's in store. I'm really hopeful. I mean, I'm thrilled to death, just with what's happened and to be here. And there's quite a few people in here in the audience. How many of you saw me on the street and I met you and invited you here? Some of you, yes. Some of you maybe from years before have taken us into your homes and fed us, and I've really enjoyed becoming part of this community. So thank you for including us.
All right, Joel, we got somebody else from the internet here. Someone who's visited your farm last month. They want to know if you've been able to persuade any of your neighbors to adopt any of your regenerative agricultural practices.
No.
Really?
No, not a one.
Not one?
Not one. No, not one. No, not one.
Wow.
Not one.
Why do you think that is?
They call us bioterrorists, typhoid Mary. They think that our non-vaccination, non-medication, non-factory farm approach is going to subject our animals to red-winged blackbirds and all the diseases they carry, and robins and those evil wildlife pathogenic birds. And they're going to lose their Tyson chicken house. They're going to lose their farm. They're going to lose their livelihood because of our cavalier negligence.
But you've been doing this for a while. You didn't start this yesterday. So what evidence are we using to come up with these fears? Because you've told me story after story where people have come and tested, your soil and your animals, and
there's a saying, I'll believe it when I see it. That's actually wrong. The truth is, I'll see it when I believe it, because your heart is a screen for what your eyes can see. And how many of us are familiar with like statisticians that use 2 data points, and one concludes from this, we should confiscate all the guns, and the other one says we should, continue to allow people to have guns, or, name your issue, your policy issue. And so, we're very clouded in our thinking by what we believe. And so I've never convinced anybody. Dad had a real bad experience with a neighbor. He was an introvert. I'm an extrovert, in case you missed that. And he was an introvert, but he went to a neighbor, and a good relationship with this neighbor early on. I mean, he passed away in '88, so this is a long time ago. And this neighbor was, asked, we were, new in the community, and this neighbor asked me what we were going to do, and we were starting to do the electric fence and moving the cows around and the different things. And Dad had armed with, Andre Voisin material, and Alan Savory wasn't on track yet then at that point. But anyway, Dad told this guy that someday we would have 100 cows. And at the time, we could only feed about 15. And the neighbor just laughed him to scorn. He came back basically in tears, he was emotionally just torn. And he said, I will never again tell somebody what we're going to do. You can't, and what he said was, you can't push on a string, you have to pull on a string. And so we've just been pulling on the string. We pay our bills, we're friendly, we wave, we say nice things. And our neighbors are wonderful people. They're salt of the earth. I say I'd trust them. I trust them with my granddaughter. I trust them with my bank account. I just don't trust them with my food or the land. That's where I am. We're on different planets from a worldview paradigm standpoint. It's awful. They're wonderful people, but they, the things that they say about us are pretty. When I say bioterrorist, typhoid, I'm not kidding. I mean, they've said that directly. How many people in the world do you want to kill? Because we all know that your kind of farming would starve half the world, because we can't feed people if we do it your way, even though I'm getting 5 times the production that they're getting. But we don't buy the things that farmers assume are status symbols. We don't build fancy fences. We don't build fancy buildings. In fact, we have very few buildings. Our buildings are portable. They're mobile. They're out, we move them all around. We don't even use physical fence. We use electric fence. So our fences are even invisible. My point is that we don't drive fancy trucks. We don't drive fancy material. We feed a third of the hay, so people brag about how much hay they make. We like to brag about how much hay we don't make. They brag about how good their monocrop is. We brag about how diversified our pasture is. We have completely different standards to measure excellence and wealth, and the fact that we've taken the farm from 1% organic matter to over 8% organic matter, which means we're holding an additional, every percentage of organic matter holds another 20,000 pounds of water. So seven clicks of organic matter is 140,000 gallons of water that we can now hold that we couldn't hold in 1961 when we came. And the neighbors haven't moved their organic matter 1 inch. In fact, they've lost soil since we've been there. So, but you don't see that. You just don't see it. And we've had numerous neighbors, several years ago before we got better equipment, we had neighbors mow hay for us and things like that. So they mowed hay for us and other people. And I remember this one neighbor, he was an old guy, all the farmers are old. And he gets done mowing the field. And he lives 2 miles away from us. He'd driven up with his tractor and mower to mow the hay. And he did an amazing thing. He got done. I went to take the check out, write him a check. And he turned the tractor off. Now, when a farmer turns his tractor off, that's a big deal. That's a big deal, because you don't normally turn a tractor off. He turned it off. I climbed up in the cab with him. And so he turned the tractor off. And the next thing he did, he moved his chaw of tobacco from one side of his mouth to the other. I mean, and when a farmer moves his tobacco from one side of his mouth to the other, you better listen, because they're getting ready to say something really important. He leaned back in that tractor. He said, I ain't never seen nothing like it. I ain't never seen nothing like it. I didn't know you could grow hay with mulch. He didn't know how to say compost. He doesn't know what compost is. All he knew was mulch. I didn't know you could grow hay with mulch. Another fellow on another rental farm, same thing, got done, says, how do you guys do this? He says, you don't buy chemicals, you don't buy fertilizer, you don't plant seed, and it's the best grass I've seen anywhere. What do you put on it? Daniel, our son, he was there, and he started to explain to him, we move the cows around, we graze the hay fields. Strategically, we use multi-speciation. And the guy interrupted him and said, but what do you put on it? Daniel said, it's the way we manage the grass to increase the energy cycle and the diversity and the thickness of the sward through strategic pruning with, but what do you put on it? I mean, you can't get through it. I mean, you can't get through it. I mean, they've been taught that it doesn't work, and in their world it doesn't work, and so it can't work.
Well, one good thing
So
about the printing press, the internet, you may have not been able to convince anyone within a 10-mile radius, but I know that you've convinced people worldwide.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, no prophet's loved in his own country, You got to get on a suit and a suitcase and go 500 miles from home to be an expert. So that's just the way it is.
Well, if we have a few more minutes and you guys are willing, we'll take some questions from the audience for anyone that has questions for these gentlemen.
There's one right back there.
Okay, Rory, you mentioned chicken tractor. What the heck is that?
Well, I could mention it, or I could have Joel. My wife made me make Joel's chicken tractor. So can you explain to him what it is?
It's a portable chicken house. A chicken, so rather than having the birds confined in a stationary structure, you put them in a mobile structure that you move every day, and you can move this under orchard trees, you can move it through a pasture, you can move it through a garden, and they can eat the bugs and scratch up your garden, turn your, instead of a cultivator. I mean, there's all sorts of, the point is that you use the animals to do the work, and then you're using appreciating stock to do your work instead of depreciating machinery.
So at his place, how many would you have across your field?
We've got about 200.
200 of these that are probably 10 foot by
10 feet by 12 feet by 2 feet high. Each of them holds 75 birds. So 200 is enough to hold about 15,000 chickens.
So how does that compare to a
we've got as much roof space as a factory chicken house, but it's 200 cubicles, floorless field shelters at 75 birds apiece, which obviously is very different than 15,000 in one group. And so it's modular. It's modular rather than centralized.
Yeah.
And so you get scale. You get scale not by building a centralized infrastructure. You get scale by duplicating a modular infrastructure.
So
which means that you can scale with cash flow. Dave Ramsey would be proud. So you can, in other words, if you want to build a Tyson chicken, if you want to grow chickens for Tyson or Cargill or something, you got to build a $500,000 house. That's a pretty prejudicial hurdle. That keeps young people out. When young people can't get in, old people can't get out. So if we're going to lower the impediment to entry for young farmers, we need to allow them to get in with pocket change so that they can start their farming enterprise and then cash flow it to scale without borrowing money.
So he has, they'll be all the way across his field, and they move them every day, 10 feet every day, and he's created this system to where it can happen really, really fast, and they have fresh grass every single day, And we have the same thing on our farm that we've been doing. My wife and I did that for a while. The difference right now on our farm is we've also built a one-room schoolhouse that's a full-on farm school. So our children every single day come out and move 3 of those chicken tractors. I mean, they're kindergarten, first and second graders, and every single day they're moving birds and learning how to raise them, much like Joel, but instead of learning,
the shelters are smaller.
Yeah, they're smaller.
So that they're miniaturized. So they're more. They're
it's the same
they're
process.
Legos instead of Duplos.
It's
they're
pretty neat.
They're child friends. That's the beauty of this. You can because the equity is in management rather than physical infrastructure. The scale, you don't get economies of scale with size. The profit potential becomes size neutral because the equity is non-physical rather than physical. There's
A lot of big words.
He's really smart. Any more questions?
Yeah, we got someone right back here, sir.
Joel, how large is your farm in acreage, and what are your primary products, primary crops?
Great. The question is, how large is our farm in acreage and what are our primary things? So we own 950 acres, and we lease another 1,300 acres in the community, about 12, 13 different properties. What's happened is there are several people who have moved out of the city and put equity in farmland. They don't even live there, but they want a safe place that if things get unsettled, they can flee to this haven. I call it an agrarian bunker, and they can ride out unsettled times, and they believe in what we're doing, and they want us to manage it for them so that it will be there in case they need it. So we're having these properties. In fact, if I weren't here today, I was supposed to go look at one today for a couple that's moving. They're fleeing California, and they're not stopping in Bozeman. They're coming on to Virginia.
They're happy.
Yeah. I know. I knew that would make everybody happy.
Yeah.
So we're seeing this. We're seeing this equity shift. On our 950, those 700 acres is forest. Only 250 is open. But we run. We run beef, pork, chicken, both eggs and meat, turkeys, rabbit, duck. Am I missing something?
Goats and sheep.
Sheep. Yeah. Our grandson has sheep. So it's a pretty wide menagerie.
Any other questions? Yes.
I was wondering, Joel, are you going to use the can of worms for fishing in the pond?
A can of worms for fishing in the pond. That would certainly be a spin-off enterprise to sell worms for visitors who want to fish in the ponds. We've built 15 ponds over the years so that we can irrigate. So, you don't hear about irrigation much in Virginia, but we're in a really, really significant drought right now. The creeks have all dried up, and we're into critical phase. And so we've been irrigating with the New Zealand K-line simple modular irrigation system. And so we've got fish, bass, bluegill, that sort of thing. So the worms would be
Who gets to pick the worms out?
So that was one of the.
It's part of the experience.
That when you start down talking about poop, you just can't get away from it. It's a captivating subject, and so one of the biggest critical design factors was nobody at the farm. They said, we'll do this if we don't have to touch it. Nobody wants to get in there with a shovel and scoop it out.
It surprises me.
Surprises, yeah, I don't know why. And so here again, now think about this. So the problem is the fresh stuff is on the outside. So you've got this mound, and it's coming in, and it's rolling down the edges. So you got toilet paper, and you've got fresh poop. And the fresh is on the outside. The stuff that's digested is on the inside. So to get to the digested stuff, you've got to penetrate this outer. It's a real problem. It's a real problem.
I see where you're going.
So, where you're going,
and to get the fish and worms out.
See where we're going, right? and we're really going. So the beauty of the so one of the design features is that in the shop we are making a special 4-foot long trowel that can hook onto the front end loader, so we can take the back off of this, this like 4-foot by 4-foot holding facility, and we can shove this 2-foot wide, 4-foot long trowel in there, and it will pick up the core, yes. But the fresh stuff will fall off the edge. So you pull off the center. Are you with me?
Sure.
You pull off the center, and what's left that rolls off is the fresh stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's a significant development in concept as we've pushed this forward.
Very significant.
So we will see how that. There's a lot of unknowns here, but people don't realize half of the domestic water in the United States goes through toilets. Half of the residential water use in the United States goes through toilets. So, as we look at droughts and different situations, would you rather have that water in your toilet or growing grass? I mean, that's a question. That's a valid question. And I would rather have it growing grass than wiping your so, yeah. That was uncalled for. But what we do with water is a big deal. I mean, especially California. They really need it, and so there's a lot of.
Any more questions about poop? It doesn't have to be that. We can.
I don't think in my life, I'm 82 years old, that I ever drove 275 miles and watched somebody talk about poop for 2 hours.
Well, no, we haven't talked about poop for 2 hours. Don't throw us under the bus here. We've only put some attention on it. Yeah, but we're glad you drove 275 miles to hear about poop. Yeah. It's an important subject.
Yes, we have a question right here.
Oh no, there won't be a patent. If this works, we will be like everything else that we've ever done at Polyface. It will be out there, open source. We will absolutely, because we think this is a real breakthrough in event spaces. Here's the thing: you either put in a water system, which is very expensive and highly permitted and licensed, or you go to porta potties. And who wants to go to a porta potty? I mean, you can, and that's what we've used, but they're expensive, and you got to haul all this off. I mean, these people are bringing this stuff to us. We don't want it to leave. I mean, the farmers of 50 centuries, the Chinese, they were so competitive about getting people to use their roadside toilets for the rice farmers that they would grow flowers and spruce them up with all sorts of scents and flowers and beautification and murals and everything. Stop at mine, to get the human. Sir Albert Howard, who's considered the father of regenerative agriculture, he wrote an agricultural testament in 1943 and developed to the world the scientific art formula recipe for scientific composting. In his book, An Agricultural Testament, he says, and this is 1943, he said within 10 to 20 years, the whole world will realize the folly of water-based toilet systems and will go to diamond cities. And so these were, think of a diamond, all right, 25 houses in an acre, so 25 houses in a diamond shape. That way every house has a solar, no house blocks another, so all of them have solar, so they all have passive solar, so they can all have greenhouses on them, and the inside of the diamond is in 1 acre, and the 25 households hire a master gardener to grow all of their food, who also does all of their composting of poop, and that drives the fertility for the 1 acre garden to supply the 25 households. And he presented this as a true revolutionary scientific offering, to the world, and thought he was convinced that within 10 to 15 years the world would totally embrace it, go away from water-based toilets and everything. And obviously we haven't done that. So it's time to start.
I'm so glad I asked that question earlier. This has really been, seriously, it's been good. There was another hand? Yes, right here.
Rory, can Indiana come say hi?
Can Indiana come say hi? Indiana? Let's see if somebody, maybe Mr. Tom or HK can see if Indiana can come down and say hello.
Any other questions while we're... Yes.
Joel, do you have who's going to take over your position when you go to the Lord?
Take over my position. So our son Daniel runs day-to-day operations. So I work for him. When I go home, he gives me my list. Before you go again, here's what you got to do. And so we've actually, as a family, divided the job descriptions. And so he's day-to-day operations, fully in charge of the team and production and all that stuff. And my official job title now is Chief Visionary. So I get to be Chief Visionary. And that means they have to listen to my visions instead of roll their eyes, because that's my position now. So so we're in good hands. I mean, we don't know the future, obviously, but one of my blessings is I could drop dead on this stage right now, and I know that everything would be just super. We've got a fantastic team that we've cultivated over the years, and at this stage of my life, for my days to be surrounded by 20-year-old, 30-year-old youthful enthusiasm, excited about the future, and for me to run and catch up and keep up with them. Most farmers, when they get to my age, they get pretty lonely because their kids are gone, nobody cares, and they're getting up and down off that tractor by themselves. And I get to have this whole team of enthusiastic young people that leverages my grizzled experience and leverages that experience on aggressive caressing of our umbilical womb. And that's a wonderful thing.
I think maybe we'll have time for one more question. Yes.
How do you deal with, or do you deal with anything like gophers, rodents out there in the field?
Varmints.
Varmints.
How do we deal with varmints?
Well, the varmint that causes us the greatest problem are bureaucrats.
Zing.
And that's one reason why we keep great big compost piles. It makes great places. I've made so many jokes about it, we actually had a guy send us a plastic, like for a biology class, a plastic skull, so I could plant it in the compost pile when I give tours and strategically roll it out. And, that was the guy from the USDA last week. Yeah, we've got groundhogs, but we have perpetual jihad on groundhogs. There are varmints that we don't like, but we don't do an annihilation campaign. We have predators that attack chickens, obviously, but there are things that we do to keep them at bay. But generally, an imbalanced varmint problem is created either by an ecological imbalance that we create, or it's simply created by a cycle within the ecosystem. So we never attempt to annihilate. We simply deal with individual rogues who are not content with the ecosystem, diversity, and habitat that we have set up for them. Most of them are very content. So we don't graze the trees. We fence out the woodlot. That grows a lot of chipmunks, squirrels, and moles and voles to feed the carnivorous predator animals, things like that. Groundhogs are happy to live in the woods, but if they come and dig a hole in the field, then we take them out. So, we have boundaries, but we don't have a scorched earth policy for any of these kinds of things.
How about one last question from online, Joel? When you are traveling, what do you eat? Because obviously you love to eat polyface, nutrient-dense food. So what do you eat when you're on the road?
Yeah, what do I eat? So routinely, I don't. So it's a good time to fast. And I don't eat in airports. So I've been known, fortunately, I would make a great brood cow. I can look at ragweed and stay fleshy. Fleshy, that's what you want for a brood cow, right? An easy keeper. I'm an easy keeper. So I'm happy for, a meal in 36 hours, a meal in, I've gone 3 days. It actually is good for you to skip some.
Sure.
Especially if it, hangs on you like mine, if you have a slow metabolism. So fortunately today, compared to like 20 years ago, there are more and more local high quality options that we didn't have 20 years ago. So usually I'm able to find some, and at the end of the day, I'm not a cultish about this. I'm a great guest, and I just say, don't take me to McDonald's. I mean, that's like the devil, But I'm not cultish about it. I'm a good guest, and if somebody doesn't get where I am, I don't preach. I don't make it a big. I don't want to put them in a spot. But some people do obsess about it. We've got him coming. Oh no, what do we do? I try to tell them, well, just be nice. That's fine. But typically, I mean, like yesterday, I didn't eat until we had lunch. Yeah, I didn't need to eat. I left early and didn't eat, and so I typically go a day or day and a half as I'm traveling, and not eat, and I find it does fine. I mean, if everybody ate with conscience, we wouldn't even have McDonald's. We wouldn't have. I mean, there's so many things that we wouldn't have, and other things that we would have if people really ate mindfully. But I'm not a cult about it either. I'm a good guest, and I'm happy for when I sit down and I see conventional store-bought eggs, I don't shove them away and say, I'm not going to eat that egg. I mean, I swallow hard and I pray, Lord, keep it down.
Well, Rory, you still got your guitar. Do you think you could play one more?
Hear one more song?
I want to thank everybody for coming out. Listening to Joel talk about poop and all that kind of good stuff, and being here tonight with Joel and Rory. And if you don't mind, play us on out of here, Rory.
I've been to church with Joel a few times back in Virginia, and he's been to my concert hall, and we do church sometimes on Sunday there. And Joel likes to sing. He might not sing now, but he especially likes to sing in church. So why don't we end with a gospel song? Would that be okay? It's been mighty dry here, mighty hot. I know there are a lot of ranchers and people around that are worried about that. And so I know that's one thing that's on everybody's minds. Even though your state opened up recently, which I'm so glad, so that we can all be here together, it's still not back to normal, I would say, right? It's a long way from back to normal. Some things have changed that it might take a long time to get back. They might not ever get back. Some of that might be good. But usually we come to an evening like this, so hopeful that we'll learn something, we'll be entertained a little bit, we'll feel good about making the trip. But a lot of times we have our own burdens. We have things on our hearts. We have people in our lives who are sick. We have financial worries. There's so many things that we carry around that are heavy for us. And this is a song that I first heard, Joey and I heard in Montana, on our honeymoon in Darby, Montana. We walked into a little church. We were on our honeymoon, but we weren't getting along very good. There wasn't much honey on the honeymoon going on because we had a lot on our heart and a lot waiting for us back home. And we walked in, and there was a mother and a daughter singing this song called Leave It There. And I'd never heard it before, neither had Joey. And it really hit home for us. We carried it around a long time, and we sang it, and we internalized those words, and we tried to remember them when we were having difficult financial troubles, and we had some. And when she got sick, we remembered these words, and today I still remember them. And wherever you are, I'd like for you to think about these, and if you know the song, sing with me. If you don't know the song, by the second time you hear us singing the chorus, you might know it, you might want to sing along. Leave it there, leave it there. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. If you trust Him through your doubt, He will surely bring you out. Take your burden to the Lord, leave it there. Now if the world from you withholds of its silver and its gold, and you have to get along with meager fare, just remember in His word how He feeds the little bird. Take your burden to the Lord, leave it there. Sing with me. Leave it there, leave it there. Take your burden to the Lord. Take your burden to the Lord, oh, and leave it there. If you trust Him through your doubt, He will surely bring you out. Take your burden to the Lord, leave it there. Now if your body suffers pain and your health you can't regain, and your soul is slowly sinking in despair, Jesus knows the pain you feel. He can save and He can heal. Take your burden to the Lord, leave it there. Sing one more time. Leave it there, leave it there. Take your burden. Take your burden to the Lord, oh, and leave it there. If you trust Him through your doubts, He will surely bring you out. Take your burden to the Lord, leave it there. Take your burden to the Lord, leave it there, leave it there. I hope you'll come over and get a free CD. Say hello to Joel and say hello to me. Thank you for being here tonight. God bless you all.